I want you to imagine living in London, a place that has been dominated by the politics of the left for a very long time. I want you to imagine life after leftist policies encourage mass immigration and taking in lots of refugees from so-called Asian areas of the world. Now, I want you to imagine that crime, such as terror, is increasing.
If you took over Britain, you'd ban alcohol.
Of course, alcohol will be banned, drugs will be banned, pornography will be banned, gambling will be banned, but the money saved...
Imagine that you actually have to stop an attacker in London with a Narwhal Tusk because you have nothing else to defend yourself with. And then I want you to imagine this guy. Man who tackled London attacker with Tusk says Trump is feeding terror. So in other words, this man, this Narwhal Tusk wielding man, has gone full NPC and is saying, Orange Man bad, it's the Orange Man's fault, because of an attack of terror in London. How foolish. Now, I wanted to talk about this because it's completely and utterly ridiculous. It's one of the worst disingenuous arguments I've ever heard. The idea that it's Trump's fault, that London, a country which has nothing to do with the United States, that it's Trump's fault that there's increasing attacks in London is the Orange Man's fault. I don't buy it. I don't believe it. And this person is an absolute fool. So, exclusive, Darryn Frost. Now, for those of you who do not know, he tells of fighting a terrorist with a Narwhal Tusk and the dangers of U.S. policy. So, there was an attack on London Bridge. Again, this sort of thing has been increasing. It's been happening more often. And the attacker was a foreigner of, let's just say, Asian descent. That's what they like to say over there in Europe. And because in London, you're not allowed to own weapons, you're not allowed to own firearms, the citizens had nothing to defend themselves with. What did this man do? He grabbed a Narwhal Tusk off of a fish shop and proceeded to rush the attacker. Now, people were injured in this attack. They were injured, they were hurt. The man had knives. If these people in London just had a right to bear arms, like we do here in America and the United States, where we're allowed to own firearms, maybe, just maybe, this attacker would have been stopped very quickly. But they don't. Because that's what the left advocates for. They don't believe in gun ownership. They want to disarm all the citizens, believing it'll stop attacks, but it won't. If anything, the London attack proves it. Now here you can see a picture. Because they literally cannot stop this man who was an extremist. He was a foreigner who hated Western society. He came out of the Middle East. I think a lot of that is self-explanatory. So they had no way of defending themselves. So you can see people fighting with a Narwhal Tusk, fighting with a fire extinguisher. Can you imagine being so helpless, being so powerless to stop evil people from attacking you, from hurting you, from bringing harm to you? That you literally have to resort to a Narwhal Tusk? And even after this attack, this man who had to pull the tusk off the fish shop hasn't learned his lesson. So here we go. Let's read the article. This is the man. I believe he's an NPC. I believe he's completely wrong. And I believe that people like him are exactly why London is falling apart and suffering increasing attacks. Not Donald Trump. The man who used the Narwhal Tusk to tackle the London Bridge terrorist, Usam Khan, has accused Donald Trump of feeding terror with his belligerent Middle East policy, warning it will breed more murderous attackers like the one he and others faced. Now, this is such a dumb statement. This is one of the stupidest statements you could ever make. Not once does this person, this leftist, realize that maybe if the London government didn't support mass immigration and didn't support bringing in people from cultures that may or may not be compatible with Western society, who may have a lot of animosity towards Western society, maybe bringing them isn't a good idea without proper assimilation, and maybe in smaller numbers. So Khan in question, he killed 2 people, and he injured many more. And yet, Darryn Frost, this is what he's talking about? He's saying Orange Man bad. This is the Orange Man's fault. The next generation of terror will rise as a direct result of these actions, and we must condemn them now, in response to President Trump taking out a general, Qasem Soleimani, and that whole ordeal with Iran. How dumb can you be? How dumb can you be? How dumb? This has nothing to do with Trump. This has nothing to do with Iran. This has to do with your policies of your government. London. They're letting in They're in support of globalization, they're in support of mass immigration, and they're in support of bringing in people who may hold animosity towards your country. Maybe the solution is to not let in people who aren't vetted properly, and maybe to slow down that immigration. I'm trying to represent this issue in a very fair and balanced light. But people like this, in all of their ignorance, in all of their stupidity, make it very, very difficult. He described how in the weeks following the atrocity, he had been racked with survivor's guilt. Why do you feel guilty? You should not feel guilty. What you should be is outraged. Outraged that your government would put its own citizens in danger. You see, the man, the London attacker, he was known for being a dangerous man. He was actually arrested beforehand because he was plotting attacks on London. He was plotting attacks. He was arrested under terror charges. And instead of facing a full sentence, they let him out on probation. They let him out. They released him. And the first thing he did was attack and kill people. Clearly, the left is at fault for this. Clearly, it is London's governmental policy and foreign policy that is putting its citizens in danger. But no, according to him, Orange Man bad. Maybe it's not the Orange Man. And maybe the fact that you're such an NPC, that you're so blind, that you can't even see the cause of your problems, which is mass immigration that cannot be assimilated properly. Maybe that's the cause of your problem. Frost has launched a campaign, Extinguish Hate, to convene support for kindness as an antidote to extremism. Look, I'm sorry, but the London attacker was given a policy just like that. They thought that they rehabilitated him and he was released because a lot of the leftists said, look, we can't be too harsh to these people just because they're foreigners. We should release them, let them go. Maybe we can rehabilitate them. The solution is kindness. And look how it ended. He murdered 2 people. He injured many more. And this isn't an isolated incident. The reason I bring up immigration as an issue is because this used to never happen. In fact, it's been increasing and increasing and increasing. So if you look at members of the European Union, and I believe this is a little bit outdated now, of course. This is from 2018, however, so it serves our purposes just fine. The United Kingdom, the UK, it is home to some of the most terrorist attacks. Number of terrorist attacks. This is a list based on 2018 data. In the United Kingdom, the vast majority of attacks came from the United Kingdom. I wonder why this is. It's not an isolated incident. Most of these are extremist motivated or religiously motivated, and they all seem to be happening the most in the UK. So he's complaining that Trump's actions could cause backlash. Dude, why don't you focus on the criminals? Maybe instead of trying to prevent backlash, you should try to prevent criminals from committing crimes. These people are delusional. And this is why I believe that for a large part, Europe is absolutely lost. Because the left is so delusional that they just can't ever admit to themselves that maybe they're the ones who are at fault. Maybe it's their policies. Maybe it's their ideology. Maybe it's their naive, childish, idealist notions of what the world should be that cause these problems to persist. You don't see Poland suffering from any terror attacks. When's the last time you ever heard of such a thing? Poland also has very limited immigration. As far as I know, Poland certainly does not take very many refugees. In other words, well, maybe there's a reason that they don't have any attacks. Maybe there's a reason that London is having so many attacks. Maybe that's why. But these leftists literally they're just self-destructing. They're destroying themselves, and they're destroying their own country. Their deaths have created a drive within me to challenge hatred and intolerance. What about the intolerance of the person who actually did the crime? Why are you saying Orange Man bad? Why are you blaming Trump? Why don't you blame the madman that committed these crimes? Why don't you blame extremism? What feeds terror is actions like this, where people in power act as judge, jury, and executioner across borders and jurisdictions. Oh, really? Because as far as I know, the reason this man did this attack was because he simply hated Westerners. That's it. That's all it was. Maybe that's why. As he ran down the stairs, he saw somebody below, lying motionless and pooling blood. Khan had already landed fatal blows on Merritt and Jones. Fearing there would be nothing upstairs that might be improvised as a weapon, he turned back and found a pair of ornamental narwhal tusks on the first floor, and slid one down carefully from its wall bracket so as not to break its sharp tip. So this is one of the funniest and horrible things to me about the UK and about Europe. They're first of all, they banned gun ownership, and they also banned knives. No more knives! Ban your knives! We gotta get rid of knife crime. Ignoring the real issue. It's their leftist policies. God, I can't even be mad anymore. I'm just sad right now. I'm just so darn sad. How pathetic, how delusional, how blind can you be? You're so defenseless that you resort to an ornamental narwhal tusk. Doesn't that tell you something? Doesn't that tell you that maybe the right to bear arms and the right to protect yourself is important? That maybe America is right? Maybe Orange Man is not bad. Maybe you live in a country of NPCs and you need to wake up and take the red pill. Maybe, just maybe. See the truth. What a joke. What a joke. What a bad, bad joke. So yes, Orange Man must be bad, and it must be Orange Man's fault. The first 2 weeks were horrendous. It was like a movie going through my brain at 100 miles per hour. I've had lots of memory loss. I'm feeling really depressed and low. I have been suffering from survivor's guilt. Why should I have any joy when Jack and Sasuke can't anymore? You know, that's the first thing I absolutely agree with you with. I agree with you. Why should you have any joy? You shouldn't. Because even now, you're advocating for the exact policies that put these people in harm's way. Instead of advocating for gun ownership, instead of advocating for more restricted immigration, and perhaps less mass immigration, and more assimilation, instead of advocating for the logical choice, you choose to blame the Orange Man. Well, I'm sorry, but you're an NPC, you're an absolute fool, and you're completely and utterly wrong. It is not Trump's fault. Trump is not feeding terror. No, he is not. It is not his fault. It is not America's fault. Why don't you take a look at your own policies, at your own country, and figure out why things are happening? What's going on? Figure it out. I think it goes without saying that this man has not learned a single thing from this event. And you know what? Maybe London is just lost. Maybe that's it. Maybe there's no hope for London. Maybe London will become a case study of what happens when you have unfettered immigration and unfettered leftist policies that end up doing more harm than good. But that's merely the obvious. Well, that's all for now, folks. What do you think about this story? Do you believe that the Orange Man is bad? Is this NPC correct? Be sure to let me know. Now, as always, if you like the content that I produce, and trust me, especially when I talk about videos like this, I don't get any support from any platforms. I'm not getting monetization. So, join me on Patreon or Subscribestar. There is a small joining bonus. If you're interested, you can join for as low as $1. You will get the bonus regardless of how much you give. If you want to donate, you can do so through Bitcoin. I'm looking into expanding those options. And sharing the video is always appreciated. If you think it's worth sharing, go ahead and post it on social media. As always, thanks for watching. This has been Mr. Obvious, and I'll see you all next time.